couple weeks ago, my partner Brian had a good conversation with one of our local government agencies. They had put out a request for qualifications. If you don't know what that is, it's like a formal application or a formal request that local government agency makes to consultants, and they put together what they call a short list of consultants that they'll use for projects over some future period. It's usually 1 to 5 years, somewhere in there. So this local government agency had gotten a lot of funding and had some big projects to take down the next 3 to 5 years, and so they were putting together an on-call list. They had an existing on-call list. But they needed to update their list. They knew they needed more help. So my Brian had over the course of a week or so had a couple conversations with one of the folks at the local government agency, and was a civil engineer that Brian and I had both worked with before in the past, and we had done work in the past for this agency, and they have some specialized work, and Brian and I know how to do that work. And so they were having a conversation with us because they were interested in having us help them on some of these future projects. And Brian and I hadn't worked with this particular agency for probably over a decade. So it'd been a while since we'd done any work for them, and now we own our own company. So the first call we got was, hey, heard you guys own your own company. Is that true? Would you be interested in working with us? And we told them that we did have some interest in that. And then we had a couple more conversations with them over the course of the next, 2 or 3 months maybe. So one of the things that my partner Brian tried to do on the last conversation we had with the agency was help the local agency understand that, based on what they were telling us in their conversations, they were looking for a type of consulting firm that doesn't exist, which sounds strange, but I'm going to explain to you. So they were really asking us if we could be something that we can't be. And so I'm not sure if we're going to end up doing any work for them. We may. But Brian had to explain to the folks at the local agency that, hey, we're not going to promise you guys that we're something that we're not. And we don't think that what you guys are telling us you want is you're going to find it. And so I thought it would be really good to explain what it is, what this kind of company or consulting firm is that local agencies sometimes are trying to find, and they're not going to find it. They're going to struggle. And so if you can understand what that is and what the alternatives are, then you'll be more successful in filling your short list in an SOQ or an RFQ. Now, some of what I'm going to talk about here deals specifically with civil engineering and land surveying, but these same principles apply in general to consulting firms. So architectural, structural, any of your architectural and engineering disciplines. And it probably has broader application. So what kind of consultant, we'll call them the unicorn consultant, what does that unicorn consultant look like? In other words, when we were having conversations with this local agency, what were they telling us they really wanted in a consulting firm? So there are 3 things that they wanted out of this local consultant, and it's really hard to get all 3 in the same company, and I'll talk about why. So here's the 3 things they wanted. They wanted a company that was local. Okay, and that's there's different reasons why government agencies do that, and it's not bad. It's good to hire local firms if you can, and if it makes sense. It's good to hire local firms. Most of the work that we do here at RH, I would say 65% is within an hour or 2 of either Stockton or Oakdale or South Lake Tahoe. Those where we have our 3 offices. So there's good reasons to do that. Local governments like to keep tax dollars local, which I don't think is a bad thing either. I'll talk in a future video about what are some reasons why it might not be a good idea to hire local, but as a general rule, it's a good thing. So that's what this government agency wanted, somebody local. They wanted the consultant to actually have an office in their primary jurisdiction, which we did. And so we checked that box for them. That's one of the things they wanted. Okay, so not a problem there. Okay, the second thing they wanted is they wanted a consultant that was affordable. So we're in kind of a unique situation here in our part of California. We're pretty close to two large metro areas. So we're less than an hour from Sacramento, and we're about an hour, maybe a little bit less, from the East Bay area. So we're close to two large metro areas where prices tend to be a little higher. But we're also an hour or two north from, let's say, Fresno, the Fresno-Bakersfield area, which has some of the lowest cost of living in the state. So we're in kind of a unique situation. And so our local agency that we were talking to, they are cost conscious. So they do care some about price. There's nothing wrong with that. They're looking to get good value for the taxpayer dollar. And they are not going to want to pay what a typical consulting firm in a major metro area like the Bay Area or Los Angeles or Seattle, they're not going to want to pay those kinds of fees. So that's okay. We also check that box. So we are affordable compared to those bigger firms, and we have a low overhead as a company. So our overhead is well below the typical average for a civil survey consulting firm. I would say our overhead's probably half the normal rate, and that's not an accident. We designed the company that way. And we have a relatively low cost of living. We pay well, but I don't pay my people what they would make in the Bay Area or Los Angeles because we have a lower cost of living here. I wish the cost of housing was lower, but that's a different topic for a different video. But so we check that box. I suspect we had one of the lowest hourly rate schedules that the agency received. Okay, so far we're doing good, 2 out of 3. Okay, so but I told you we're talking about a unicorn, right? So this last box we're not going to check. So the last thing the agency wanted, based on what they told us, was they wanted a consultant that could just do everything they needed on these projects. So they wanted to just be able to call one company and just have them take care of all the aspects of the projects. Now that sounds like a great idea, and I understand why the agency wants it. They believe it's more convenient, and it eliminates some coordination issues. But here's the problem. We as a company, RH, do way more than your typical land survey only firm. So we don't do civil engineering, but we do land use planning, land title, CEQA, GIS. We do some remote sensing, aerial photogrammetry. So we have a pretty broad basket of services for certainly for a firm our size. We're only about 12 people, and certainly compared to your average survey-only firm, I think we have a pretty broad basket of services. But let me read you the list of stuff that this agency wants their consultant to take care of. This is one consultant. So here's what they want. They want a consultant that can do civil engineering, geotechnical engineering, surveying, right-of-way acquisition, public relations, CEQA, program management, financial management, political lobbying and advocacy. Yeah, there is no way they are going to find a company in our local metro area that's going to do all that. Now, they might be able to cover that basket with 3 or 4 local firms. There's no way they're going to get one local firm to do all that. They're just not. Now, you can find a local firm to do all of that stuff if you're in one of the world's biggest metro areas. We are not. So if you're in Los Angeles or San Francisco or New York City, you might be able to find a local firm that can do all of that. But those people that you're working with in some of those specialties, they're not all going to be local. They're going to be across the country or across the United States. And so I think it's a little bit of an illusion that you're going to have all those people, down the street from you. So why is this type of unicorn consultant? Why is this not possible? And there's some economic reasons why it's just not possible. And this isn't the first time I've seen a government agency trying to find this type of consultant. Okay, and the reason why is there's just some trade-offs. There's some trade-offs in the consulting industry that you can't get around them. They're kind of like physical laws of the universe. So one is size versus affordability. It's just the bigger a company gets, the higher their overhead gets as a general rule, and the more expensive their hourly rates need to be to support the framework. Now there are things I'm not saying that you can't bend that curve a little bit. You can, but as a general rule, as your organization gets bigger, your hourly rates have to increase. You get more expensive as a consultant. Now, we have low overhead. I told you that already, and I think we're very affordable. I don't do what we call lot surveys. I don't do surveys. I shouldn't say I don't ever. We rarely ever do surveys for residential homeowners. Why not? I'm too big. There's a lot of surveyors in the market that run one-man shops or two-man shops or three-man shops, and we just can't compete with those folks on price. They're not renting an office. Some of them don't have professional liability insurance. They're not paying benefits for their employees, or they don't have employees. And so we just have a different cost structure, and that's okay. We know that. And I'm honest with clients when they call. Sometimes we'll get friends or family that'll say, hey, I've got, a third cousin, my third cousin's twin brother's uncle needs a survey. Would you guys do it? And I have to tell them, we're probably not a good fit, and here's why. They're gonna pay us too much to do this work. Let me refer them to somebody smaller. So now you can bend that curve a little bit. I think we provide excellent value because our hourly rates are low compared to the capabilities we offer. So we offer the capabilities of a larger firm with a smaller size. So you can do some things to bend that cost curve, but there's a limit. There's a limit to what you do. If I triple the size of Redefined Horizons over the next 3 years, those hourly rates we charge will have to go up, and the size of project we do will probably have to go up. There's just no way around that. Okay, the next trade-off is size versus capability. So again, you can bend this curve a little bit, but there's a limit to how much you can bend it. So as an organization grows in size, it is that their potential to specialize also grows up. This is just a fundamental rule of economics, folks. You can't specialize as much with 3 people as you can with 30 people. When I looked at the list of things that the government agency in the opening story was looking for, in my mind, that's a 300-person firm minimum, I think. And it might be a 3,000-person firm. It is certainly not a 3-person firm or a 12-person firm like Redefined Horizons. So, as you get bigger, you can specialize more, and you can now. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Maybe we'll talk about that in another video. There's different reasons why larger firms can support more specializations, but it's smaller firms are not going to be able to support 42 different disciplines. They're just not do it well. So I would say I have 12 people, and we support a half a dozen disciplines, that we do a really good job at, and we are unique, I think. Most firms with 12 people do not support 6 disciplines. So there's a trade-off there between size and capability. Okay, the last trade-off, and we talked a little bit about this, is just size of the consultant versus the size of the home metro area. So the larger the metro area the company is based in, the larger firm that can be supported. So I grew up in Northwest Montana, north of a town with a population of, I don't know, maybe 25,000 people. They might support 1, 2-person or 3-person survey firm. If you're in Los Angeles, there are going to be 100 survey firms, just because the size of the economy is going to support not only more firms, but larger firms. So you're going to see larger consultants with more specializations in larger metro areas. Now, For most people, that's not a huge deal. If you're a government agency trying to keep work local, it creates some challenges if you're not in a large metro area. You're going to have to choose, see? If you want to do everything consultant, you're going to hire somebody from outside your area. You're going to hire a consultant from one of those large metro areas. Or you're going to hire more than one consultant. That's the trade-off. So now there are some exceptions to that. Again, that's a general rule. So Redefined Horizons, we're based in Oakdale. We have an office in Stockton and Salt Lake. But we cover a huge geographic footprint. So we cover all of Central California, and we do work in Northern California, Southern California, and Western Nevada. So you can have, Oakdale, where our main office is not large enough to support a 12-person surveying and geospatial firm. It's just not. There's not enough going on there. There isn't even enough going on within an hour of Oakdale. So now we're based in Oakdale because we love Oakdale for a lot of different reasons. Oakdale is a great town, but we knew when we made that decision that we were going to have to cover a much larger geographic footprint to support a firm of the size that we had. Another exception as an example is Sacramento. Sacramento has a more large consultants than would typically be justified by the size of the metro area. That's because of the state capital, and there's a lot of government functions there, and a lot of those larger A&E consultants spend government money, and they really need to have a presence in that city. So there are exceptions, but as a general rule, the size of your consultant is going to be based on the size of their home metro area. So big multidisciplinary consultants can be convenient, right? They might have less coordination than a team of smaller consultants, but they're always going to be based in a larger metro area. They're always going to be more expensive than a small local firm. As a general rule, they are not going to provide good service on small projects. In other words, they're going to need larger projects to really provide you with good service. And they're not always as convenient as they might promise you. And we can talk about that more in another video, but you have to be very careful. Big firms tend to have more turnover than small firms, and they're going to have specialists spread across the country, and so you can still run into coordination areas there. So, one thing the government agency, local agency told us is that they got a lot of interest from firms in the Bay Area on this RFQ. They got almost no local interest. I think we might have been the only local firm that submitted. And the part of that's just because of what's going on in the economy right now. The Bay Area economy's not doing as good. Our economy's doing better over in the Central Valley. But we told the government agency, hey, no problem. You can hire the firms in the Bay Area. They are going to do more than we do. They're going to cover more of those specialties that you need. But their hourly rates are going to be 1.5 to 2 times ours. You are not going to get those Bay Area consulting firms that are 5 times or 10 times or 100 times our size to work at our rate schedule. So you have to choose. Now, if you're a local agency, government agency, and you're watching this, you might be like, that's a little depressing. Like, the unicorn does not exist. And that's true. It doesn't exist. It's a myth. So what can you do as a local agency based on what I've told you? You got to carefully evaluate those trade-offs I talked about, right? And I talked about at least 3 of them. You want to match your basket of projects to the right type of consultant. Larger projects are probably going to require larger consultants. Those consultants are going to be based in large metro areas. I tell people you probably shouldn't call RH to build your new NFL football stadium. That's not going to be a good sized project for us. It's too big. We're probably not going to, run your statewide high-speed rail project. You need a big consultant to do that. The other thing you can do is consider a mix of consultants. When you run your short list, maybe you get a couple big firms. And then you get 2 or 3 or 4 smaller firms. So you can pick and choose, right? You can have the small firms do your work and save a little money. When you need a specialty the small firms don't have, you can pay a little more and have one of the big firms do it. So get a good mix. And then the last thing is, when you're putting together your SOQ or having conversations with consultants, be honest with them about what you need, what you're looking for. In hindsight, we were on the fence about submitting for this particular RFQ. We were asked by the agency to do that, so we ended up doing that. But had I known that they were looking for the unicorn consultant, we probably wouldn't have submitted, because I know that we can't be that for them. That's not what they're looking for. So the local, affordable do everything you need consultant does not exist. It's a unicorn. So you have to be a little more realistic about the trade-offs that you're going to have when you're putting together an on-call list. So what will I talk about in the future? I'll talk a little bit about the best methods to work with big consultants. I've worked at some big consultants, and I can give you some suggestions for that if you're a local government agency. And we'll also talk about, how does this model work where you might have 2 or 3 local consultants that might want to team together and to provide services, and we can talk about how that would work. So thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube and you like the video, hit the subscribe button. You can get notified about future videos, and I appreciate your time.